Hey, Slop Dog! The Brainiacs are ready!
Welcome into LeatherBrainz. We are a day late and a lot of dollars short because we're poor. But welcome in to LeatherBrainz. It is Wednesday, not Tuesday like we typically do for the podcast. We're a little busy, so apologies on the delay. But nonetheless, we are here. And boy, oh boy, we got 57 days until NFL football. Very, very excited for that. We're under 2 months, baby. Under that 60-day mark, and I'm still excited to talk about football, but I'm really excited to watch some football.
I just want you all to close your eyes for a moment and just think you're sitting on your couch and you hear 7 hours of commercial-free football start now, and that is, oh my God, it's like porn.
It's better than porn, I think.
Better.
I would argue. Today, of course, you've already heard him on the mic, Scotty Del Rey. It's good to have you here, and we have our good friend MK here to join us on the episode today. We appreciate you joining us, MK. It's been a little while since the last time you've been on the pod. You're still part of the LeatherBrainz team, but why don't you give the little people like the little salt meme? Why don't you give them a little bit of a taste of what you kind of are doing for us in the back end a little bit?
Hey, it's great to be back on the podcast. You know, I always love getting silly with these guys, on the mics. But, behind the scenes, we're getting some good work done. We are actually going to be starting up a second show, going back to 2 a week like it was last season for LeatherBrainz. However, this show is going to be a little bit different than, the show that we got here on Tuesday. It's going to be a little bit more fantasy football based. So for you fantasy football diehard fans out there, you dynasty owners out there, we're gonna be giving a lot of different insights, rankings, different stats out there. So stay tuned for that. We got a lot of great content coming, and the show debut is going to be sometime in early to mid August. So just get excited for it, and we're excited behind the scenes. So
I'm excited for it. You're bricked up, Scotty?
Well, yeah. I wish you wouldn't have said that twice.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to say that, and now everyone knows.
I want to make sure I heard you right, because that's what I thought I heard. And
you heard me right.
I'm also bricked up. No, I am excited. I'm excited to see what you guys are. We've been working behind the scenes with you guys to get everything kind of in place, and you guys are doing a great job. So excited to have a fantasy football show join the repertoire here at LeatherBrainz as an actual full-time fantasy show, because here around the LeatherBrainz show, we kind of strayed away from it and are more NFL focused. So other announcements, we have an official sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Very excited for this partnership that we have with Erica's Healthy Pet. I have 2 dogs, and I love them dearly, and I want to make sure that I am giving them good quality treats and snacks, and Erica's Healthy Pet is where that steps in. So I've been giving them, they've got a couple different treats there, and both my dogs thoroughly enjoy them. Scotty, you also have 2 dogs, do you not?
I do, and both of my dogs, it's not my fault. I just want to make that very clear. It's not my fault, but they're a little fat. They're a little bit overweight. I got 2 German Shepherds. Well, they're on the heftier side, but we're moving in the right direction. We're getting healthy all as a household, and a big part of that has been Erica's Healthy Pet. We just took Chuck, our male German Shepherd, to the vet. He's down to 101 pounds, which means he's still a gigantic dog, but he's not obese like he was before. So that's good. And Erica's Healthy Pet is great for that, because they provide not just a couple treats, but like a ton of treats for dogs and cats, as well as essential oils for their fur and for if they get like bug bites or they're like gnawing at their feet like dogs tend to do sometimes. It can take care of their skin and their hair. All this awesome stuff. And the best part about Erica's Healthy Pet, and the reason why we use them, is because it's all like preservative free. There's no hormones in it. It's all natural. So it's good for the dogs. Obviously the dogs love it because of the taste, but we like it because it works and it's healthy for them. So it's a great website, great place that you can buy all of your dog's treats. It's based in America. Everything's manufactured in America out of, I don't remember which city, but in Texas. And we, by the grace of Erica, the owner of Erica's Healthy Pet, have a promo code for you. So you can go to ericashealthypet.com and use promo code LB20 to get 20% off your order starting right now. You can literally do it right at this second, and it'll be delivered right to your door with a 20% discount. And let me tell you, you're not going to regret it, and neither is your pet.
You won't. And I to conclude that, this is our first sponsorship deal. And what that means for us is if you want to find a way to support us and support the show, and like a lot of you Brainiacs out there have been supporting us, this is just another way to go a little bit further. So not only are you getting good pets for your treat, or pet treats for your pet, but you're also helping out the show. So it really does go a long way, and we appreciate it, and they are good quality stuff. So go check it out, ericashealthypet.com, and use promo code LB20 for 20% off. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the NFL. They officially owe $4.7 billion following a class action verdict regarding the NFL Sunday ticket scandal. I've seen a lot about this on social media. This has kind of been traversed in a couple different media spaces. I think the gist from the common man is that we as NFL Sunday ticket owners are about to see like $20 in restitution here, and so it's kind of sad because Sunday ticket is really expensive, but the idea is that the NFL fixed the price of Sunday ticket higher than market value in order to limit the number of customers and protect their TV deals. The NFL still plans to appeal this verdict, but currently we as NFL Sunday ticket owners are slated to make like $20.
Well, and I actually don't know how much in restitution that Sunday ticket subscribers would get back. Obviously, if they're going to appeal it, I don't know if that's going to change anything, but it's just a weird situation because like the NFL is like, we're going to create this product and we want people to use it, but not too many people to use it because we don't want to jeopardize our situation with like CBS and those networks. Yeah. So they're like, well, let's just charge out the ass. So that way we make sure we get just the right number of people who actually pay us for this. So I don't know if it's going to be like a $20 thing that you get in the mail from this lawsuit, or I don't know if you're going to get like a refund or maybe a discount for future use, or I have no idea how this is going to pan out, but it is something to keep an eye on. What's really interesting to me is that nobody was really talking about this as this trial was going on. Roger Goodell testified like in person, and it seems like if you aren't like really plugged into the NFL, you wouldn't have even known that. So it's like this is kind of a big deal. Obviously, $4.7 billion is a ridiculous amount of money, and we're just now kind of learning about it. So hopefully we get something good.
Bring me my money. That's all I gotta say.
Hell yeah.
Give me that. I will happily take that $20 and go get myself a nice Chipotle bowl and some chips and guac on the side, just to.
Oh my
fill out
god,
that
you
$20.
are really treating yourself.
I don't know
there.
if $20 is gonna do that anymore. I haven't been to Chipotle in a while, but I think guac is like $14.99 now, in addition to whatever else you're paying for.
You also have to go in the back and help like squeeze the avocados to make the guac for it. While we're talking about Sunday ticket, like I saw also a lot of people talking about, I'm not going to say any names, I'm not going to say any locations, but there is some places out there on the internet that you can find free Sunday ticket. Hard to believe.
What?
And I know. I wish it was just a dream, but it's not. It is reality. And I have been there, and I have seen what it looks like. And I did own Sunday ticket last year, so I do want to state that. But I saw a lot of people arguing about like, well, this is the reason that like, everybody's going to this free illegal platform to watch this. And a part of me is like, man, like you did kind of, it is such a outrageously expensive thing. And I recognize that as an owner of Sunday ticket. And there's a couple different ways you can get different Sunday ticket packages that are a little bit cheaper. But if you want to watch all the games, you're talking like just shy of $500 to get like the Sunday ticket package and all the out of game markets and stuff like that. And I'm like, I did it because I am a scumbag that sits on that couch over there and watches football for hours upon hours without fail. But there's something to be said of like most people. I'm thankful that I purchased it, but and have the means to do so. But that is a very outrageous price, I think, and so I think that we'll continue to see more illegal platforms kind of take over, and it's not my problem necessarily unless somebody gets caught, but. I don't know. I saw a lot of people like really saying, fuck you, fuck the NFL, fuck Sunday ticket. Like we like Red Zone, but Sunday ticket can suck a butt because it's too outrageously expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I love the NFL so much, but also fuck the NFL. I'm very conflicted in my life. It's very confusing. And if the NFL's listening to this, then I just love you.
The NFL is listening to this, and I guess we're probably doing something right. But I'd say myself, as a Sunday ticket owner, I've gotten actually the student discount for a couple of years now. But I'm personally a big fan of the 4-game mix because I like to see all my players. I like to see all the plays. I don't want to only see the red zone plays. I want to see, what everyone's doing. So for me, I'm curious to see, are any of these illegal streaming sites going to start offering, a 4-game mix? Because right now, if you go to, like a Stream East or a Crack Streams, whatever you use in your local streaming, they only have 1 game at a time, and it's great. But, when are they going to offer that 4-game mix? Because that's when I really think that people are going to say, is Sunday Ticket and platforms like that really worth it?
I feel like another thing to mention here is I didn't watch the 4-game mix a whole lot. I typically was a red zone kind of guy. But when I would turn the 4-game mix on, it's like the overlay that they use is just, they need to find a better like user interface to make it look better, because the games get shrunk to very small and it drives me nuts. And I'm like, dude, I'm on a big ass TV and I still can't see that shit. So they need to figure out the user interface to make it a little bit more visually appealing. And I don't know how to solve that problem, and it's not my problem to solve. But the NFL does listen to us. That's my piece of advice. Fix your user interface. Let's talk about Brian Daboll. Okay. So Hard Knocks just came out. Have you guys had the opportunity to watch Hard Knocks this season?
I watched
so
the first
far?
episode.
Yeah.
I have not gotten to it, but I have seen a lot of the popular clips so far of the episode.
Okay. I just watched the first episode last night. And I will say this. I actually am really... I was not excited for this. I was not excited to find out that the Giants were going to be Hard Knocks in the offseason. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't care about the Giants at all. But as I watched this episode, it was really interesting to me. Like, this gives me even more of just a glimpse of what goes on behind closed doors with an organization in the offseason. And it was really, really interesting. They were talking about Saquon Barkley and, like, can we afford to keep him? And they're talking about the other free agents that are in, running backs, and like what might they demand from pay and deals with other teams, and can we afford to get somebody else? And obviously we've already seen all that play out now because it's further along in the season. We obviously know Saquon Barkley's not with the Giants, but you get to watch that. And it is really, I thought it to be really, really cool. And they also talk about Daniel Jones. And I know there's some conflicting opinions in this studio about, is Daniel Jones going to be the guy? And they talk about that. They do talk about it in the show. And they're like, yeah, we're paying this guy $40 million. Like, we need to know if he's going to be our guy. And they vocalize that and are talking actively about that. And I'm like, well, I'm glad to know that I'm not as stupid as I thought I might be, because I was saying the same thing.
Well, and what I took away from all those conversations is that, like, I think as NFL fans, we kind of have this idea, when it's your team and they do something stupid, you don't hesitate to call them stupid. But we generally have this idea that all of these people in the smoky rooms making the decisions, like, are geniuses. Like, they do this for a living. They know everything. Like, they can rattle off stats off the top of their head. And watching this, you're just like seeing a bunch of dudes in a conference room drinking Pepsi, eating chips, and just like it's like a normal group of human beings that are just like, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that situation? Like obviously it's more formal than what we're doing on the podcast, but it's like kind of the same thing. And that was interesting too. That it's just like they're just dudes that are just like, well, let's roll the dice and we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, just watching Hard Knocks in general, it was interesting because I'd say that most of the stuff, or seeing the clips that I saw, most of the stuff is obviously, what happened throughout the offseason. But, when you have a bunch of cameras there, you obviously got to know that some of it's scripted. And so it's interesting because obviously, you'll never know until you're actually in that room when there's no cameras. But, it's actually kind of interesting to see some of these decisions that go down in the moment. There's been a lot of stuff that dropped on the Cardinals and, their draft night and how they wanted to move up. They tried to move up for Darius Robinson multiple times, who they ended up actually getting at their pick. And it's just interesting seeing, in a way, how similar it kind of is with that and a fantasy football league when you have a dynasty fantasy football league, because it's about trading up for your guys and, having a conversation where you don't want to seem too overexcited about someone so that you don't get fleeced, but, also being reasonable to an extent.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like the Giants got a new defensive coordinator. And so they introduced him in this first episode and he comes in and it was This was something I've thought about, but I don't really understand because I'm not in the NFL space or in that way. And the defensive coordinator came in and was like going over the scheme he wanted to run, and then everything was blurred, so you really couldn't read like his all the things that he was telling them. But like, they had to make sure what they did and didn't show to try and give any other teams a competitive advantage. But he's talking about like this is this is the way I want to run my defense. These are the people I want you to look for as far as like talent perspective. These are the kind of guys that I'm looking for to run my team successfully. And that's been something that I've often thought about is like, especially when a new coordinator comes in and it's like, you don't have like, you're not coming in before the draft. You're not coming in like you're playing with the team. The cards you've been dealt, I guess is really a good way to say it is you're playing with the cards you've been dealt. Right. But you still have tendencies for how you're going to want to run your ship. So how does that communication work with the front office? Because at the end of the day, we like most teams, the front office makes the final decision and gets everything going. But like you have to have those conversations with your coordinators and your coaches and even your players to make sure that like you guys are all kind of on the same page. And that was a very, very tiny glimpse into that. And I thought it was really cool because I was like, oh, that's kind of how that might go down. And it was cool to see. It was cool to see. The other thing that was really cool to see was Brian Daboll guaranteed that he could run I think it was a 7-second 40-yard dash if there was a plate of wings in front of him, which honestly I believe that. I don't know if anybody's seen Brian Daboll recently, but he's slimmed down a little bit.
7 seconds is a long time.
That's a long time.
40 yards. Like
very long time.
Like if you can't run 40 yards in 7 seconds, like if you think you're going to be close, you shouldn't try. I think Brian Daboll would smoke that time.
You think he'd smoke it? I think I'd give him 6'5".
Yeah, I mean that's smoking it by 40-yard dash standards. I mean you're talking about like it's. I don't think he would even be close to 7 seconds. I think he would demolish it.
Yeah,
okay.
You've got to get him some nice cleats and some gym wear because if he's running his coaching uniform, then that's where it really starts to get close.
That windbreaker.
Give him like one of those Chris Jones like spandex shorts leotard kind of situation and have him just send it.
Where his balls fell out.
Yeah. It's a good day.
Okay, let me ask you this: what do you think you could run a 40 time in, Scotty?
Well, I haven't ran a 40-yard dash in 10 years, 12 years. I don't know how long it's been. 11 years actually. And back then, I ran a 40-yard dash in 4.5 seconds. Since then, I've gained 30 pounds and lost all of my athleticism and my ability to breathe when doing anything remotely active. So I'd give myself I bet I could run it at under 5 still. I bet it'd be close.
You think you could go under 5?
I think I could.
No way. No way. Under 5. There's no way.
What do you want to bet?
What do you want to bet? I was going to say I think I could. For me, the over-under would be 5. It would be either really high 4s and like the 4 9s or like the low 5s, I think for me. And I don't feel definitely at my peak athleticism, but I've been getting around some athletic activities these days, so I'm still in some decent shape.
For me, It just depends on if my hamstrings hold up. My hamstrings hold up, I'm getting under 5. If they don't, it's going to be a did not finish.
DNF, he dies on the sideline. I am not athletic. I am a big guy. 11 years ago when we ran it, I ran a 5.68. Okay. I think I could beat that. I really do think I could beat that now.
I think so too.
I'm in better shape, I think, than I was then. I think I'd give myself like a 5.4.
Yeah. You were in offensive line condition back then. Now you're in like reasonably athletic. If you and I were to race 40 yards, I would smoke you. If we were to race 75 yards, I think I would die before I finished. So I think you could outrun me in any distance. But I think in a 40-yard dash, I think you would smoke your previous time.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I mean, hey, look, that just means I haven't peaked yet. That's all that I
still climbing.
Yeah, I'm still there. There's still more room here, fellas.
Lots of room for
let's go over. Yeah, you always got to leave a little bit. Let's talk about the NFL coaches, because some of these NFL coaches were previous players, right? So, who would win in your mind? Who would win the 40-yard dash as an NFL coach?
It's got to be McVay. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking too.
He's just so young. It's got to be one of the younger guys. But I do think, I had to put it in the show notes. The floose is loose with that new beard this offseason. I'm just saying he's running some sprints
You
with those
think?
with the defense. He could win that
Is
40-yard dash. I'm just saying.
You're talking Matt LaFleur, right?
No.
No, he's talking about Eberflus. He's being a homer
dude,
right now.
No,
and there's no
don't
chance.
even. No. Matt Eberflus. Here's the thing about Matt Eberflus. First and foremost, Matt Eberflus should never shave his face because he looks like a serial killer. Okay, he should always have facial hair. That should be a requirement for him as a coach because he looks like he might keep like dead bodies in his basement when he doesn't have any facial hair. The other thing is there's no way that he would win that. It is Sean McVay. To me, hands down. I saw a clip. This was like months ago of McVay running routes with the receivers, and he kept up. Like I was like, holy shit! Like McVay, he's a quick son of a bitch. So it's got to be McVay for me. Jerod Mayo back in 2008 ran a 4.54. Kevin O'Connell ran
Mike Vrabel. I mean, he's technically
Vrabel.
not a coach in the NFL
No,
right
Mike
now,
Vrabel's
but
big.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to compare him to anyone else his age and his size, he would blow all of them out of the water. But I
He's
think you compare him to
48
people
years
like
old.
Sean McVay. I think Jerod Mayo is an interesting candidate because I bet he's probably, since his playing days, is similar to you, Hunter, where he's probably slimmed down a little bit. And he's probably a little bit more like athletic in terms of just like his explosiveness, not in terms of strength. I bet he could probably, I mean, 2008 was a long time ago. So
Mike
I don't
Vrabel
know.
is 261 at 6'4", and he's 48. It's weird that they put coaches' weights on here because it doesn't matter at all. But that's what there's no way Vrabel wins that.
sleeper
How much
pick
does Andy Reid
though,
make?
sleeper pick, Kevin O'Connell.
Actually, I
I've
like that
seen
as a sleeper pick.
I've seen him run down those sidelines. I think there's value at that pick right there.
Andy Reid, it says, weighs 194 pounds, but that's on Wikipedia. And
194 pounds.
I think that might have been in high school.
Have you seen that video of Andy Reid at like the punt, kick, and throw camp? Or
Yeah,
whatever
he's
those
like
things were,
he's
where
like 6'1", and these kids are like less than
Yeah.
4 feet tall.
He's in like 4th grade and he weighs like 240.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck is this guy?
He's
Yeah,
just a giant.
I would love to watch Andy Reid run a 40. But I do think McVay is probably the leading candidate. LaFleur seems like he's probably sneaky fast. But I just think you got to go with McVay. He's just young. He's fit.
I like the Kevin O'Connell, though. I do think that's a sneaky one. I think Kevin O'Connell, he's a good-looking dude, which has nothing to do with speed, but he also looks like he stays in shape. Actually, Robert Salah, I think, would also be another sneaky one. I think he's in pretty good shape.
I think so too. I think he's got dad strength though. I don't think he's like run fast.
I think
he might
could
knock you out.
I think he could outbench a lot of these coaches, and athleticism might be more athletic than them, but I don't think speed. I think he'd probably be in the upper average of it, but speed wise, I don't think he's in the top. I don't think he cracks the top 5. What about Nick Sirianni though?
No, he can't do anything right.
That's true.
Man, there's a lot of hate on Nick Sirianni. I don't know how you feel, I guess, about Sirianni there, Scotty. I know you don't like him, MK.
I'm not
think he's
a
a
huge
waste?
fan on him. And it was funny because
I thought he was fine.
I had a couple good friends that were Eagles fans that I was trying to convince that Sirianni wasn't a good coach when they were like 9-1, and then they go on like a 7-game losing streak or whatever, and they were like, yeah, this guy got to be fired as soon as the season ended. And yet he's still there, and they fired Brian Johnson, who also sucks, respectfully. So
I think he's a hot seat candidate. I do think he is a hot seat candidate, and I think if like bringing Kellen Moore over was probably the right move. I'm not buying into the Kellen Moore hype necessarily, but I will say it probably was a huge upgrade offensively to bring him in. And I think if the Eagles still don't get it done, like you have roster wise, you have one of the best teams in the NFL. Like all you got to do is just figure it out and make sure that you don't screw this up. Like they have a great offense and a great defense. Just don't fuck it up.
Great defense seems like it might be a bit of an exaggeration, but
Okay, they have a top 10 defense. I still do believe that.
we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I had no
Good for
problem
me.
with Nick Sirianni until he started screaming at Chiefs Kingdom in the tunnel right before losing 7 games in a row.
That's
Then
what made
I
me like
realized he's a fucking moron. Yeah.
That's what made me like him. That's just called blind optimism, and I'm here for it. Okay, let's talk about something that I think is going to be actually a really interesting conversation. There's an interesting piece posted on the NFL, on NFL.com last week regarding 7 franchises and which one of these franchises is most likely to crown their first ever NFL MVP in 2024. So the 7 teams who have never had a NFL MVP are the Cardinals, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Saints, which is wild because you think Drew Brees, but he wasn't a winner, the Jets, Eagles, and the Bucks. So between all of these guys, all 7 of these teams that I just listed, which one of them do you guys believe would be the most likely to get their first NFL MVP?
I think it's clearly, for me, between 2 of them. And it's if CJ Stroud keeps going on his trajectory, whether or not it's this year, I don't know. But I think on this list, I like CJ Stroud as a potential future MVP. And then the other one is the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. If he comes out and looks like his former self before he's dealing with injuries, when he was on the Packers, he had a hand injury and still had a great season. And then obviously we all know about his Achilles. But if he comes out and looks like his former self with that roster, I think there's a real chance he could light the league on fire. There's an equal chance that he doesn't finish the season, which, knock on wood, we hope he does. But I think if you're looking at these teams, some of them, the Cardinals, unless Marvin Harrison Jr. is the greatest receiver in the history of mankind, I don't think Kyler Murray has any chance. And, I hope they have success. Don't get me wrong. But the Saints, they had their chance.
The Saints have nobody. I think Aaron Rodgers stands the best case as comeback player of the year versus MVP. But I guess it all determines on how he comes out and plays.
No, we'll see what DeMar Hamlin does this season, but
we'll see if he makes the roster. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's what I'm saying.
But the way I see it, CJ Stroud is a clear candidate here. I mean, I'd be shocked if he didn't win an MVP by the end of his career. Would you even be surprised if he won it this year with the weapons that he has? I wouldn't necessarily pick him now to win it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But you look at last year, he was already the conversations were happening about potential MVP candidates, and Stroud came up. And I think rightly so. I think he, out of everybody here and given these teams, and you start thinking, I don't think the Jaguars have anybody either. I don't think Sarah Jessica Parker is outstanding. I really don't. And in fact, I don't have it in front of me, but I saw a statistic of it had player A and player B, one of those things. And statistically, Sarah Jessica Parker and another quarterback that is their stats are similar, and I know you know what I'm talking about, MK, is Daniel Jones. Statistically, they're very similar. And the guy went on to say in this clip that, if you really want to get down to brass tacks, the Giants actually maybe got a discount at a quarterback that is similar caliber at $40 million versus the $55 that they're paying Sarah Jessica Parker. So I know we segued this a little bit, but
totally
I'm going to try
and
bring it back.
No. Let me.
Okay, you don't want to segue. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I don't want to segue this because there's 2 things.
All right.
One, Trevor Lawrence. I think people gotta go back and watch the film. I'll say this: he has a turnover issue. Cannot deny that at all. He needs to fix that 100% by this year or the end of next year. But he had so many beautiful passes last year that were dropped for touchdowns. He was dealing with a shoulder injury, an ankle injury. His main target in the slot went out last year. I think Lawrence can have a great year. They paid him for a reason. I don't think that quarterbacks are getting this money for no reason. You have to. They paid
Daniel Jones for a reason. They paid Daniel Jones for a reason too.
I don't think Daniel Jones has looked as good. Well, first off, Jones at that point has played longer than Lawrence. Jones's best year was his 4th year, which Lawrence is entering into right now. It'll be interesting to see what Lawrence does with Brian Thomas, because this is arguably the first potential top tier receiver he's ever played with in the NFL.
How dare you insult Calvin Ridley like that?
Calvin Ridley, he's a good player, but he's definitely good, but he's not that top tier, deep threat receiver that T-Law, who's a gunslinger, is really looking for. But aside from T-Law, I think the guy we're really missing, who we haven't talked about at all, is, I think you mentioned the Eagles, but Jalen Hurts. He's got to be in this conversation.
You're talking for MVP candidate?
Yeah, for MVP candidate. I mean,
okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, he's got to be in this conversation. I would personally put him at second. He's been in the MVP conversation for
Sure.
2 years in a row at some point in the season. And while I don't think he will win it, he definitely could with the abundance of touchdowns that offense scores.
Yeah,
Well-
especially if their defense lets them down, that offense is going to have to be firing. And if Jalen Hurts can dig them out of some holes, then I could
But
definitely
it should
see
fire. It should offensively. Like, what is the best? What is the best NFL team offensively right now? Like, what is the first team that comes to mind from a personnel perspective? Not like
Don't
who's going to
say
win
it,
you games.
Dan. Don't say it.
I was going to say the Ravens.
Oh, that's not
Okay,
what I
so you
thought
think the
were gonna
Ravens?
say.
I think personnel-wise, the 49ers offense is one of the best offenses in the league.
I think
And
it's them two or the Lions.
yeah, the Lions are also up there, but I still
You're
think
not
the
putting
Eagles.
the Bears in it, huh?
No, you got to prove it to you first.
I'm not gonna overrate the Bears until I see something. They got the roster to be great, but they haven't done anything on the field. So let's watch
It's
the
interesting
Bears
because
play.
I think the last time you were on this podcast, your exact words were the next dynasty. So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or think you're overestimating or anything, but like the next dynasty, they got to be a top two offense to do that. I think.
They could.
I think and let me ask you a question. If Caleb Williams the top 5 quarterback in the league, are we a top 2 to 3 offense? I think we are.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. If Caleb Williams can come out and play good, if we're talking just personnel, I do think the Bears are in the conversation. I think the Bears are currently right now, and we haven't seen Caleb Williams play a game of football, so you have to go in with that understanding. But you look at all the other weapons on that team. Offensively, you have 3 incredible wide receivers. You have a really good running back. Your O-line is not the best in the NFL, but it's getting there. It's stout. And then you have a rookie quarterback. And that's really where that's the big question mark, I think, because we already know what Keenan Allen and DJ Moore can do. Romo Dunze right now is your wide receiver 3 because of the other 2 that you currently have. So, like, yeah, there's that offense is good. But I think that the Eagles offense, going back to this MVP conversation, is also equally as good. I mean, you have a very good wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Davante Smith. You just got the second best running back in the NFL. Your quarterback is incredibly mobile and has a good arm. Like, it is a really good team. It is a really good team. And you have Dallas Goedert as well. So, like, I think offensively, I think Jalen Hurts should be in that conversation. And I do think that he is an MVP candidate, and he was before. Obviously, he's been to the Super Bowl. He knows what that's like. And I think that if the defense for the Eagles lets them down, that offense should be the backbone of that team and be able to carry them to victories. I do believe that.
So one last question before we move on. Of this list, putting all logic and reason aside, who would be the most fun MVP on this list? Because I think if Baker Mayfield came out and won MVP, that would be the greatest storyline in NFL history. That would be so fucking incredible.
Dude, at one point in time, he was playing defensive line for the Panthers. Like, he was lining up as a D lineman for drills.
I'll give you a little sleeper pick here, just because this team, you said that they have nobody, and most likely they will have nobody. But let me sprinkle just a little Spencer Rattler action for the Saints. Let me just sprinkle it.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ.
We are at the
That would
bottom
be
of the barrel,
hilarious.
MK.
That would be a good story.
You can't
be
tell
fair.
me that if Spencer Rattler won the MVP after all that wouldn't be like the craziest thing to ever happen.
Spencer Rattler wins the MVP and Caleb Williams sucks in the same year, and then they go back to all those college tapes of Caleb Williams sitting behind him. And wait, I might be thinking of somebody else.
And then
But
I'm
either
no
way.
longer on this podcast because I'm no longer on Earth at that point. So
MK just he called it quits right there.
yeah.
I don't think that would happen. I think for me, I would. I mean, I have some self-interest here, but I'd love to see Marvin Harrison just like light the league on fire.
That would be
Would
amazing. He'd be the
love
first non-quarterback to win the award since 2006, and LaDainian Tomlinson, which
Yeah.
that's back. I was a child, but I hated my life because the Chargers were incredible. Watching LaDainian Tomlinson play football was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to get that kind of football again. I really don't. I mean, there is a very clear reason that he was the MVP. I remember him as a youthful child. I don't remember like a lot of him because this was when I was just kind of starting to get into football. But I would remember like, who is that guy? Like that was insane. And then it's like, oh, it's LaDainian Tomlinson.
You don't
Yeah,
just
fantasy
score.
cheating.
You don't just score 30 touchdowns. That doesn't happen nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't do that anymore.
If you score 20
Well-
touchdowns, that's absurd.
Jamal Williams, didn't he do 20 or 2 years ago?
We usually
he
will
was
see
close to
one
that.
player. One player will usually hit the 20 mark. McCaffrey might have hit it last year, but 30. I think he had 31, averaging back then also with a 16-game season. What, almost 2 touchdowns a game is absolutely ridiculous.
That is
It's
ridiculous.
absurd. And as a Chiefs fan, I was hype because we had Priest Holmes, and I was so hype about Priest Holmes. He was dope as shit. But then you just
He's got a
compare
cool
him to
name.
the Chargers. Yeah, you watch them play the Chargers, and you're like, oh, that's what a really, really good running back looks like. We didn't have that.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, MK. I asked what the best offense was in the NFL. I said, what do you think? And the first team that came to mind for you was the Ravens. Cam Newton very recently said that Lamar Jackson is the greatest dual threat quarterback in NFL history. And that's coming from Cam Newton, who a lot of people would give him the title of the greatest dual threat quarterback in NFL history. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on Lamar going into this season especially?
I used to be the biggest Lamar hater that there was a couple of years back. If there's any player that I would say I've ever been wrong about, it was Lamar. Not because I never thought that he was a good football player, but I've never seen a player improve as much in one aspect of the game as he has with his passing ability since he was a rookie. I watched him. I traded for him in a deal that was very good for me, even though I didn't want to last season. And because of that, I obviously started watching him. And I
Sure.
started watching him and I realized, wow, all these balls are starting to really go on the money. And I think that people, in a way, a lot of people talked about his MVP season last year as being a little bit fraudulent, which I agree it was compared to previous seasons. But you also look at Gus Edwards scoring 18 rushing touchdowns on the ground, and that's just the nature that the Ravens play and why they're so good. They have the 1 seed, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So when you compare that to Cam, who obviously, when you think about Cam, is the 15-1 season, and he was incredible. Lamar was just a much better dual threat player than him. Cam was at the goal line, he's going to score. He can run you over and he can make some nice plays, but Lamar, his ability to extend plays, even before he became a really good passer, he's obviously has a crazy speed for a quarterback. And, now that he's becoming an elite passer, he's going to be around for a while. And it's going to be interesting to see what it is with Zay Flowers coming into year 2 and Mark Andrews coming back from injury. And then obviously Derrick Henry, who isn't much of a receiving threat, but is going to scare a lot of people.
Take some of the
in that
load
box.
off of him. Yep. Yeah, can maybe take some of the load off there.
Well, I
running the
agree.
ball.
I agree with his take there. But Prime Cam, don't disrespect him. He was incredible, but he just didn't have the passing ability that Lamar had.
See, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think Lamar Jackson is obviously very impressive, and I've been a big Lamar Jackson fan forever. I've been one of those people that has said, when he struggled in the passing game, obviously we've seen improvements on that front, but also he's never had weapons. I mean, this team, since he's been drafted, was Lamar Jackson's legs. That was the whole team. So now that he finally has some options in the receiving game, and you're starting to see the offense come together a little bit, Lamar Jackson, I mean, the sky is the ceiling for him. But for this conversation, why are we not talking about Michael Vick? Michael Vick is the greatest dual threat quarterback in NFL history, bar none. Cam Newton was amazing. He doesn't come close to Michael Vick. Lamar Jackson, so far, is amazing. He doesn't come close to Michael Vick. Now, if Lamar Jackson could put together a couple championship runs and really still improve, I think he's got room. But Michael Vick, bar none. And then you talk about somebody like Ben Roethlisberger, who obviously it's a different kind of quarterback, still a dual threat quarterback. But this is a winner, and we haven't seen that from Lamar Jackson yet. Well, allegedly. I don't know if that's alleged. I don't know if that's alleged.
I don't know either. I'd have to go.
He's not in
look
prison,
in the file.
so I assume it's allegedly.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, we could say the same thing about Deshaun Watson. It probably was a similar thing where it's allegedly Deshaun Watson's a rapist, but
he didn't.
Where do you
rape
draw the line?
anybody. It was pressure situation. Let's move on from this.
Okay, yeah, this is getting a little sketch there.
I don't want to get in the weeds of this.
Yeah, I do want to say you and I were paddling in the same boat there, MK, as far as Lamar Jackson is concerned, because that was one thing that for years I was he's not good. All he is he can run, and he is a good runner, but I had been saying for a very long time, and it's funny because Scotty and I would go back and forth in this conversation just watching football on Sundays, and he would say the same thing, is he just doesn't have any weapons. And I'm like, yeah, but he still can't throw the ball. And that was my biggest hit on him too. And I said, I think if he can improve as a passer, he would be an incredible quarterback. And much like you, my opinion on him has shifted drastically from where it used to be as far as like, he's a running back. He's a running back. And last year I started to see like that improvement as a passer, and it still wasn't there yet. I wasn't sold on it completely, but I was like, they're making improvement there. And then this last year I'd seen a lot more, and I'm like, this is good. Like, this is not only is it good for fantasy football and football in general, but this is good for the Ravens and his longevity in his career, because statistically, these running quarterbacks, like, as you get older, A, you're going to slow down, and that's going to severely limit your toolkit on the field, but B, you're one wrong hit from potentially your career never being the same after that. And so you have to develop your throwing ability if you want to stay. Like, look at Drew Brees, look at Tom Brady. Like, how often were those guys running around, right? Like, as they continued to find long-term success in the league at a later age because they were traditional pocket passers. And so if you want to stay in the league a long time, I think that is a tool you have to have as a quarterback. Matthew Stafford, Jerod Goff, none of these guys are big runners, but they're traditional pocket passer guys, and they'll maybe run for a couple yards here or there, but nowhere like your Jalen Hurts or your Lamar Jackson. So I agree with you. I just wanted to say I think that's a really good take, solely because it's my opinion too, and that means it's right. But I think that we're probably, a lot of people are probably saying the same things that we are.
Yeah, but as of right now, it's Michael Vick.
I tend to agree. I think Michael Vick should certainly be in that conversation. Okay, this is kind of funny. Yesterday, there was news that the Jaguars' Josh Allen, not to be confused with the quarterback for the Bills, Josh Allen, defensive player, he's an edge rusher. His name is Josh Allen. He has changed his nameplate to Josh Hines-Allen to match his uncle, who was a former NBA player, and his sister, who is currently a WNBA player. Talking about a family of success. Yeah. But he's changed his name from Josh Allen to Josh Hines-Allen. And that will now be Hines-Allen on his jersey.
Yeah, I just think, how much money would you pay to see Josh Allen of the Bills decide to change his name just to match? Because this has been like a meme now for years. So
it has.
I think it would be very funny if Josh Allen just showed up week 1 wearing a Josh Hines-Allen jersey, Bills jersey. It would just be like one of those subtle trolls that I think would be very, very funny. So Josh Allen of the Bills, you need to get on board with this immediately.
I would agree.
Yeah, let's see if this
let's
see if this translates to more sacks this season for him. We'll see if the name change actually, increases or decreases his production. That will be something to watch for him this season.
Yeah, if he has a down year, gets injured, do you think he goes back?
He just brings a Sharpie and writes Hines, like scratches it off. And then he was like, because maybe for him, like in media spaces, everybody is always talking about how great Josh Allen is. And maybe sometimes he gets that misconstrued for him when they're talking about the other Josh Allen. And now this could kind of take a blow to his ego, and then maybe his performance, because he's not as strong, because they're like, no one's talking about me anymore. I'm Josh Hines-Allen.
I got a prediction. I think Josh Hines-Allen is going to start a podcast within like 2 years. I think he did this for SEO. He did this because when everybody searches Josh Allen on the internet, they get the Bills Josh Allen. They do not get him Josh Allen, and he wants to make a jump into media. And he wants people to be able to search for him and not the other Josh Allen. I think this is a 3D chess move.
I've already thought of a potential sponsor for him, and it's ketchup, and he can get the Heinz.
That would be a very high IQ play by him, Scotty. So we'll have to see 2 years down the line. If you call that, then that could be a viral clip.
I mean, I would say it may be longer than 2 years. The guy is like on his second contract and in his prime of his career right now.
Yeah, but Micah Parsons did it. He can do it.
I'm gonna look up how old Josh Hines-Allen.
Everyone these days has a podcast.
That's true.
I'd say a little bit less in the NFL, idiots. But especially in the NBA now, all these guys have podcasts. So it wouldn't surprise me if any NFL player, at least who sounds knowledgeable about what they're talking about, because I would enjoy listening to a guy like CJ Stroud, because he understands the game so well, and you've obviously seen the success. But it would be interesting to see from somebody like Josh Allen, who brings a different perspective to the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. Well, okay. Let me rephrase that. I like hearing the people like talk about football, but what I really like is the stories, because I want to hear all the tea. I want to hear what's going on in the locker room. I want to hear like the culture. And I was going to kind of bring this up when we were talking about Hard Knocks, but you know, and I don't remember exactly where this fit in with the conversation with Hard Knocks when I was going to interject this, but what I was going to say is like what I really like about Hard Knocks is you can kind of see some of the culture that you don't necessarily get to see. And like I remember the Dolphins was a good example of this, where like I was watching the Dolphins Hard Knocks and Mike McDaniels, and I this is just my own perception based on watching Hard Knocks, but I was like, McDaniels is somebody that like I loved. Like in the media, I thought he was a goofy dude. I thought he was awesome. And I started watching Hard Knocks, and I'm like, it doesn't appear to me like you have the respect of your players. Like they don't respect you as a head coach, like somebody like your Andy Reid or your Kyle Shanahan. And that was just my perception of it. And then I also, like, when I watched the Cardinals Hard Knocks, like I kind of thought there's been a bunch of changes since then, but like, it seemed very like dreary and like sad and didn't seem like it just seemed like the players were going through the motions a little bit. And that's just kind of the impression I got. And they had just lost Kyler Murray too, so that had probably had some impact on it. But I like the cultural side of things, and that's what I want to hear about. Like if a player is going to have a podcast, like I want to hear about that kind of stuff, because it gives you as the listener a little bit more of an insight as to like what's really going on inside that castle.
Yeah, these organizations are so complex, and so any more insight that we can get is very valuable, because you just don't know. It's like going back to what you said about the Giants and about the culture in any given room. Like when you get a new defensive coordinator, on some teams, that defensive coordinator goes to the front office and says, "What players will you give me?" And on other teams, the front office goes to the coordinator and says, "How can we help you?" And so everybody can have the same title for different organizations and have different power and different control over the situation. So for every team, when you get those insights, it's just so interesting depending on the franchise.
In other news, we're talking about culture. Let's talk about the culture of the Chargers media team, because they upset somebody yesterday, and his name was Davante Adams. Davante Adams was on the show Up and Adams, which ironically is not his show. It's just a show with, I can't remember her name, but it's Adams.
Hey, Adams.
It's her last name, I believe. Thank you. And so she was interviewing Davante Adams on the show, and they were discussing the Chargers media team in regards to when they released the schedule, and they did all those schedule release videos for the team. And the Chargers had put, like, when they were talking about the Raiders, they put Davante Adams like on a trash can or something. And Davante Adams, he told the Chargers media team to keep my name out of your mouth. And then he went on after that in this clip to give all the stat lines whenever he played the Chargers and how bad he destroyed them. And I think like Davante Adams even said, he goes, "It's not the players." He goes, it's not their fault that this media team did this, but like, don't talk about me. I think I did 177 yards in my first game against them and 1 or 2 touchdowns, and he like goes on to just ream the Chargers. And I'm like, did the Chargers media team win here? Because the Chargers were really bad. The Chargers haven't been that great recently, and you just upset like a Hall of Fame wide receiver. If I was part of the media team, I'd be like, I got under his skin. Like I got him. So I don't know if you guys saw the clip, but
this is a classic situation where both sides are idiots, because first of all, the Chargers, we talked about the stupid media release. Their whole schedule release video was just them talking shit on everyone who is way better than them. So it's just like, okay.
Well, yeah, but that's
like
that's most of the league.
Yeah, but most of the league did it in like kind of a classy, like most of the league is not putting Davante Adams, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, on a trash can. Like that is just so outlandish and stupid that's why you watch the Chargers video and you're like just shaking your head, because you're like, these guys are fucking morons. But then on the other side of things, Davante Adams, you're a Hall of Fame wide receiver. You don't need to be upset about what all these goobers in this fucking conference room said about you. You don't have to care. Like, so as a Chiefs fan, watching these two idiots bicker back and forth, I'm loving every second of it. But from their perspective, they're just both losers in the situation. It's just very dumb.
Well, I brought all this up to let everybody here listening know, if you're a DGen, I'm betting the over for whatever. On the first time the Chargers and Raiders meet, I'm betting the over on yards for Davante Adams, because he's cooking with grease.
The Chargers have also they have been known in the past few years to just give huge contracts to these mediocre players such as JC Jackson. And that's why they're getting burnt by Davante Adams for 150 yards each time. And, when you spend all that money and all that draft capital and you have one playoff appearance in the last 5 years where you blew a 27-point lead to Sarah Jessica Parker, there's not much to show for it. So I think Davante Adams came out on top on this one. I'm not going to lie here, guys.
I did too, but I didn't really care because I don't really care about either of those teams. Nor I like Davante. I think Davante Adams is an incredible wide receiver. But I was like, man, I probably would have laughed if somebody put me on a trash can and been like, dude, you guys, we're a bad team. You're a bad team. You think I'm trash? And I don't know. I would have got a good laugh out of it if I was in his shoes. But I'm also not a Hall of Fame wide receiver. So
I hate the Chargers so much.
The last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is, I don't know. Yeah, I try not to talk about or follow Cowboys news, but we're going to talk about it here for just a little bit. Jerry Jones, he is suing a woman who claims that she is his daughter. And so Jerry Jones is potentially suing his daughter. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there was a settlement between Jones and a woman named Cynthia Davis back in the 90s. And there was a settlement where I think it was kind of one of those deals where it's a little hush-hush, like, you are my daughter, you're my baby mama, take this insane amount of money, and we're never going to talk about this ever again. And then Cynthia Davis had the child, and the child said, you're my dad, I'm going to sue you. And then Jerry Jones is countersuing, saying that it was a breach of contract because they were never supposed to talk about this ever again. So I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up and see how old was Jerry Jones in the mid-1990s, because that's what I'm trying to figure out.
What is he now? He's got to be, let's guess. I'm guessing Jerry Jones is 83.
I'm guessing he's 79.
How old he is right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's currently 81.
Well,
right in between.
I would have guessed. I would have guessed like 87. In 1995, Jerry Jones would have been about 90 or 53. Excuse me. He's a time traveler.
I don't know. This whole situation is so very stupid. Can you imagine being so rich that you just have people claiming to be your kids? Like, in this situation, obviously there was a settlement. Seems like it's probably his fucking kid, but. Like,
could you also imagine suing your kid and be like, yeah, I'm your dad, but we had a deal where you didn't talk about it. Give me all my money back.
I paid a lot of money to not have to talk to you later, so you better back the fuck off.
There's going to be some type of under-the-table settlement that goes down here. I mean, let's be honest here. Nothing is happening to Jerry Jones. He'll be fine. He's the GM.
Nothing can happen to Jerry Jones.
Yeah,
nothing will ever happen. Jerry Jones is going to die soon anyway, so like he's had a good ride anyway. You know, like nothing's gonna happen.
I think if he settles again and this lady claiming to be his daughter makes a whole shitload of money off of it, I think we all need to start suing Jerry Jones, claiming that we're his kids, and just see if we can make any money off of him.
I'll get a tattoo
just got
of
so
him
much
and
money,
say,
he doesn't give a shit.
I do see the resemblance to him. You know, for him to use Scotty. You know, you guys do have a little bit of resemblance. He just usually doesn't grow out the stash. That's why you can't tell.
Is that the only? That's the only reason.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you
like
mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned that he's at the end of his life at this point, and he's at the end of his tenure. But he still won't pay. He still won't pay his best players. So clearly, he doesn't care that much about winning.
That's true. That's a really good point.
He just cares about making a scene.
The death spending spree. He just buys everyone, pays off all his kids. Doesn't give a shit.
I didn't realize how much Jerry Jones actually did for like really the NFL, and I don't know if you guys had seen like there was a thread going around about how much influence Jerry Jones actually has on had in creating the modern day NFL. Did you guys see that at all?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I knew about that. It
actually was. Did you see the tweet, or you just knew about it?
I think I saw the tweet, but I also had some prior knowledge about it.
Let me see if I can find it here real quick. This is really good podcasting.
He kind of looks like old Roger Goodell. especially before his hair turned all the way white.
Yeah, I'm going to read all this very quickly before we run out of time here. So, Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys in 1989 for $1 million, and today they are valued as the highest or the most expensive franchise in the world at $9.2 billion. And the reason for that is Jerry Jones. So, what in the world is this? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. In the 1970s, the Cowboys were losing $1 million per month, according to their owner back then. And they had come off their third losing season in a row. And then it was all due to accountability in the organization, blah, blah, blah. Jerry Jones stepped in. He said, yo, I'm Jerry Jones. What's up? This is America's team. And part of it was due to the NFL keeping a bunch of money. So Jerry had essentially picked a fight with the NFL. So in the 90s, the league split all merchandising and sponsorship revenue evenly between the 30 teams. And this meant that the Cowboys, who were one of the most popular teams in the NFL at the time, was represented 25% of all merchandise sales. And they only received like a 3% cut because they had to split it between all the NFL teams. So Jerry Jones then decided, I'm going to go sign a $35 million deal with Nike to sell officially licensed Cowboy merchandise. And then the NFL started filing a lawsuit because Reebok was like, yo, you can't do that. And Jerry said, screw it. Not only that, he also signed endorsement deals with Pepsi and American Express to get a shit ton of money for his team. And then the NFL sued Jerry for $300 million to prevent him from doing it. Jerry, who is obviously, we've already talked about it, he's no stranger to countersuing, went and countersued the NFL for $750 million, claiming that all the NFL teams should be allowed to make their own markets for, like, to get revenue. And Jerry won. Jerry won the court battle, and so for that reason, then NFL teams today can have their own merchandise sales and succeed off of that. So I just thought it'd be
Every
pretty
NFL
interesting.
franchise today just got a $400 million paycheck from the NFL.
They did. I saw
Shout out to Jerry Jones. Even if he did,
Yeah, good job, Jerry.
Even if
You're
even
old
if he
and-
did pay off his daughter, we got to shout him out here.
Miss
Allegedly,
Davis is your
alleged
daughter. Yeah. All right, that's all the time we got. Gentlemen, I appreciate you doing this. Brainiacs, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Go check out our new sponsor, which is ericashealthypets.com. Promo code LB20. And look, we have a website. Go check out LeatherBrainz.com. You will find the podcast. We have awesome articles over there. Go check it out. And make sure you're following us. Hit the subscribe button. And I'm excited for MK to debut the fantasy show that we have in the works behind the scenes. So thank you for joining us today, MK. Scotty, as always, I appreciate you, brother. Let's get the hell out of here. We
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.